There we go. To the Charlotte Show. True Faith presents the Charlotte Show with me, Charlotte, Norman, and extremely special guest, Rich Oliver. Today, I am just so excited about this. It's not a podcast, is it? It's a video. I'm so serious about it that I bought a beret, because this is a great artiste that we are speaking to. And I want to take that very seriously. Rich, thank you so much for agreeing to come on, even if you were inebriated when you agreed to come on.
that tends to be the case.
Well, I'm very grateful that you had
but once I've made my mind up, that's it. I can't back out. I
have to say, I love that about you. Like, so I asked Rich if he would come on, and he sort of said, well, you know, it's not really my kind of thing. And then after a game, I think he messaged me and said, you know what, fuck it, I'll come on. And and then it turns out this is also part of Rich's process, because when you say yes, you then stick to it, which I really like. You said, I'm not backing out now. It doesn't matter how I feel. And also, I'm getting my talking in now because Rich is a huge fan of Norman's, and Norman is a huge fan of Rich's, and I don't know how much is just going to be a love-in of those two. Norman's face is not at all.
I wouldn't even have thought that Norman would have known who I was, because he's not on Twitter or anything like that, is he?
I get sent every video that you do gets sent to the WhatsApp group that I'm on. So I live vicariously through other people's phones, basically. Other people's phones. That sounds a bit sinister, doesn't it? It's
like you're listening to our conversation.
I've got a little spy ops operation going on from my bedroom, and I watch you, Rich, often watch you.
Right, okay.
Yeah, so, and I
am a huge fan, Norman. To the point whereby I call you awesome, Norman. That's what I call you. I mean, no, insight. That's what it's all about.
It's just acting, darling. Just acting.
Well, Norman is excellent and a wonderful part of the True Faith team, and
good human being as well.
And a good human being, crucially, most important thing. But so let's so we've got a couple of people watching. Hello, Lee, and hello, Davey. Lee says, I'm expecting chaos. Well, you know, time will tell.
Well, in fairness, I have to say, there was is the lighting all right? Is the lighting all right? Is it?
Yeah.
Because this is important, because I've only ever been invited on one of these before, right? And the lighting was so bad, and I was so relaxed, right? That Jess, who was doing the co-hosting thing, she thought I'd fallen asleep halfway through, right? But I hadn't. I was just relaxed, and I was sitting back and just taking it all in, you know. But when I look back on it, it did actually look as if I'd fallen asleep. So I thought, right, okay, I'll sort the lighting out tonight. So rather than be on the laptop, you're on my phone. It's very precarious, by the way. So this could all collapse at any given moment, right? So just beware of that.
You're a real artist.
I'll recover very quickly.
Okay. I trust that. I think that you have improvisational skill here. So I trust that. Yeah, the lighting's great. You're very well lit. Very impressive. Very impressive. And if you want to fall asleep, that's okay too. You know, it's been a long week.
That's not going to happen.
Okay. Very serious.
I just necked a pill half an hour ago, so I'll be banging 50 minutes in.
Norman's on the cowies.
Daniel Marshall says, ironic Rich has been doing Bruce as he looks like a Philippe Albert Pavel Cross. Have you ever had that, Rich?
Oh, it's true. Oh, man. That takes us back. Back in the day, you know, when they were actually paying for us, I used to get it all the time. It started off Pav, and then it ended up being Albert, and I got it all the time through my youth. And there was actually there was a picture of Albert, and we'd both piled the beef on, to be honest with you, you know. But as we've got older, I've drifted more towards Albert, to be honest with you. And Pav, God rest his soul.
Yeah, Norman
Speaking of
gets.
Albert,
Oh yeah, go on, Norman.
Speaking of Albert, I like that when he retired, he went and worked as a fruit and veg wholesaler in Belgium. I thought that was an interesting post-career choice. And also, when he signed for Newcastle in '94 after the '94 World Cup, won it. I like the fact that he turned up with a tash, and at that point, tashes hadn't been seen in the area for at least 8 years. They'd kind of gone out in about 1986, I think, and he just came back in full on European, straight in with the European style, like I would say, resembling a kind of soft porn star from the 80s. Just turning up on Tyneside, fresh from the World Cup, looking like a soft porn star. Absolute legend of a man.
Did it catch on? Was it something that you were keen to?
I was only 17 at the time, so I probably could put an inkling of a tash, but I just wouldn't have looked the part, really. I wouldn't have looked the part, so no. Unfortunately, I never got to realise that.
Well, there's still time now, Norman, if you wanted to.
I had a handlebar tash during the early months of lockdown, but I realised that I looked ridiculous after a while, so I got rid of it.
What about you, Rich? You've got
I think everybody tried the handlebar tash at some point during lockdown. I think there's a ridiculous video. There's a ridiculous video of me somewhere with it doing a bit of a piss take on something, and I think it was that video itself which made me think, hold on a minute, there's no way to make this look cool, no way.
I look like a cross between Charles Bronson or Charles Salvador, I believe he calls himself now, and an extra from like a film made in the mid-80s in a San Francisco bathhouse, kind of a cross between the two. So I got rid of it. I got rid of it because I didn't enjoy the look.
Okay, well, you know what? You tried it, and that's what's important. Alan Mackenzie says, "Hello, Rich. See you in the hoochie again soon. I hope. We'll bring Muzza." So you've got some.
All right. Okay. Yeah, hoochie. It's a place in town. It's a place in town for slightly elderly or older.
I go there.
Yeah. Well, okay. Fair enough. Well, if the cap fits, pet.
Yes, it does. Yeah, Hoochie Coochie's good. It's funk and soul and stuff like that. It's good. It's a good place to dance when you could do stuff like that.
It is. It's good. It's good. And whenever I go in, I feel like I feel quite young, and that's quite. That doesn't happen often in town these days. You know what I mean? That's a big tick. A big tick.
Big tick. Okay. So, Rich, let's talk a little bit about your Steve Bruce impersonations. Now, if I was really good at this platform that we're on, I would have teed up one of my favorite videos, but unfortunately I don't know how to do that, so I haven't. But one of my favorite ones was the COVID one where he was like, they started asking me about tactics, so I just said, you've all got COVID. It's very funny. I wanted to ask you, what made you start doing these? Were you doing them just to nobody in an empty room first and then decided to film them, or like how did it start?
Well, it actually started off, it was like about 2 or 3 months into lockdown. Not the Bruce ones, but the reason it all started was because I'd been locked down for about 3 months, and I remember, I don't want to get political or anything like that, but remember the Dominic Cummings thing, right?
You can get political.
Remember that?
You can get political.
No, well, I don't want to, but just to give you an idea. So I've been locked down for 3 months, and Dominic Cummings did that. He's tripped to Durham and that. And so he travelled all that way to see his mum in Durham, stay with his mum in Durham. And I've been locked down for 3 months. And my mum lives like 1.5 miles away, right? And I was furious, right? And I knew, but I was by myself. I was in the house by myself, right? So I went. I thought I need to kind of like emote a little bit, but I knew that I needed to talk to somebody. But the only person to talk to was myself. But I knew that I was going to end up shouting, right? I knew where this was going, but I knew that I needed to get this emotion out of me. So, and I didn't want to like frighten Norma next door, right? Because she lives by herself and that, and the last thing she needs is me going crackers, right, by myself in the front room shouting about Dominic Cummings. So I went out in the car and I made a little video. I thought this would be funny, but it was only for me. It was only for me. and because I just thought it would be funny to watch back. And I recorded myself in the car, and I just started talking. And it was about 4 minutes of just talking normally, like building it up. And the last minute of it, I just went absolutely haywire, just screaming and shouting and God knows what. And but I ended up laughing. And I was talking about it on, not about the actual video. It was about the whole Cummins thing, and the kid who I was talking to about it, he says, "Oh, you seem quite annoyed." And I says to him, just on a reply, I says, "I'll show you annoyed." And I basically put the video up, what I'd recorded in the car. I'd never intended to put it on Twitter. And he shared it, and it just went a little bit crackers. Just right crackers for what for what I was used to,
Yeah.
And I thought, oh that was quite. It was funny, it was funny. So then I started doing all sorts of funny videos. Well, I thought they were funny. And then it was so I'd been doing a few of them, nothing to do with Newcastle. And it was I was working. When I say work, I was like sitting in the front room, in the corner of the front room at work. And it was before it was the Wolves game. And obviously I've been on Twitter all week, and there was a real negativity about Bruce's formations, but not about his team selection, right? And I don't know if you remember, but the Wolves game, what he did was basically pick up all of the forward players. It was like they were all there all of a sudden, like Almiron, Fraser was in, even Murphy even got in. I think he got in at right back. And it was like it was just like, what the hell? And immediately I just thought, this will be funny if I just put it up. And it was honestly, it was a from me thinking about it to actually posting it, it was literally 5 minutes, right? It was a case of, right, okay, this is funny, right? And it was just a case of me going, like, Bruce, like, going through the team sheet, and then that was that. And I put it up, and it went absolutely haywire. I've never known anything like it. And I just thought it was just something funny to do. And then, well, here we are getting invited onto renowned podcasts or videos or whatever the hell it is. I don't know.
Well, we'll release that as a podcast as well on our Patreon platform. But I think that's part of the appeal, isn't it, Rich? Like that they are so like quickly done, kind of, that there isn't like a whole lot of production or scripting. It's just you're a funny person doing something funny.
You know what?
Go ahead, Norman.
Funny with them. You know what I think is good about them is that. So that comedian, I think she's called Sarah Cooper, and basically all she does is she repeats what Donald Trump said. She says the actual words he said with him as a voiceover, so she just moves them out to Donald Trump's words.
I've seen her. She's great. She's great.
And what you're doing, similar in the sense that, you're embellishing what he's saying, but really you're actually just kind of repeating what he does. You're saying what he pretty much does, and that's what makes them really funny for me, is that your delivery is funny, but what you're saying, it kind of highlights how ridiculous Steve Bruce is. I think it's it really kind of rams home what he's actually like. I get where you're coming from, but it's some of it. So sometimes it almost feels like it's like predictive. Like I do something off the top of my head, and it's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous, and it's just like these things can't happen. But what I like to do is I like to have them have like a grounding in reality. So yeah, I've seen other kids do similar things since, and there's no you could have. What I try to do is make it that could happen. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But what Norman's saying there about it, it's like I'm reflecting them. No, I'm ahead of the game, mate. I'm ahead of the game. Right? The whole honesty, the whole rider thing, right? That was just
right, okay. It's like a reflection of Twitter, right? So remember I mentioned the first one that I did, and it was all of Twitter was saying he was being really negative in his team selection.
Yeah.
So that's all I did, right? And then so when he picked all of the players, all of them, right? I was just like, right, okay, I was just reflecting Twitter. Now with the Ryder thing, I was doing the same. It's not like I've got no gripe against Lee Ryder. You know, he's got a job to do and what have you. But Twitter absolutely hates the bloke. I think he's an idiot. It's Twitter who thinks he's an idiot, right? It's not necessarily me. But when I said, I just decided, I just picked Lee Ryder as a just. I could have really. No, the reason I picked Lee Ryder was because he gets so much grief on Twitter. That was as simple as that. But then within a few weeks, Bruce is like, he's going in a hole for Lee Ryder. He's actually doing it, right? And that wasn't a thing when I was. You remember when he had that, when Bruce did that, he did that press conference and Lee Ryder started asking him a question. It was a perfectly reasonable question. I can't remember what it was. And Bruce was like, yeah. And you know, it went a massive hoof with it, right? That came after me saying he had a spat with Ryder.
So in a way, you're
I'm like Mother Shipton. I just know what's coming.
Yeah, you do. Well, I was going to ask you as well, like, how do you feel that Steve Bruce is like? Well, firstly, I guess, could you say that Steve Bruce has become your muse, or not?
He's what started happening recently is that he's really been leaving me with nowhere to go. It's nothing. It's like where'd you go with the parody when he's pulling the stunts? I'm not necessarily really anti Steve Bruce either, by the way. Although I don't think he's very good, but not as bad as what I paint him, sort of thing, you know. But he's leaving us. There was the other one as well. What was it? Oh yeah, there was I did the first time I really mentioned Benitez was in. So my idea was that Steve Bruce was like basically he hated Rafa Benitez, right? That was the thing, and all the players were watching that. We Are the Geordies, right?
Yeah.
There's the film out, yeah.
Yeah, I watched it.
And all the players were watching it, and Bruce was trying to edge in, and he saw it was Benitez, and he was just saying, "Yeah, okay," that sort of thing. And then within a few weeks of that, he said he's coming out in these press conferences and he's having a go at Benitez. He's leaving me with nowhere to go. I've got nowhere to bloody go with this. I kind of without drifting into the realms of ridiculousness, right? Whereby when that's not where I want to go with it, because like as I mentioned before, I'd like to keep it a little bit real, as if that could happen. You know, but he's leaving us no options. I'm going to have to go full Monty Python.
Yeah, just like really, really absurd. Daniel Marshall says, will there come a time when Bruce is beyond satire? Well, it kind of is like ties into what you're saying there. Like, it's just, you're like, how do you lampoon the man who's just lampooning himself on a daily basis?
Exactly. That's like I'm saying. He's leaving us with nowhere to go. But I'm not necessarily too upset about that because I'm absolutely fed up with doing them. I'm sick of them. I was sick of them. I didn't mean to start doing them. It was an accident, you know. I've become a Twitter content provider by accident. You know what I mean?
You're an influencer. You're an influencer now.
I wouldn't say that. It's not particularly great. Norman, you do well to stay off it, mate. I'm telling you.
I was on there for quite a while, but I came off because I mean, obviously, don't get me wrong, there are some wonderful human beings on there, such as yourself, but my God, it is a cesspit, especially when you have my political proclivities, which I would say borderline communist, going on there. It just doesn't work. It just doesn't work. It doesn't work. So I thought, you know what, I'll park that, especially when like you get bladdered and you get on there and you like retweet something, and then all of a sudden like everyone like calls you like all the bastards another son. I'm like, I'm not having this anymore. So I left. But at the same time, though, some of the stuff on there is genuinely like hilarious. There are some absolute belters on there. I think I saw, like, I mean, this is removed from football, but I saw this tweet the other day. Put on your favorite, most ridiculous tweet ever, and it was just this list of things, and I was like crying with laughter by the end. So it does have its good aspects, and also like your impressions. That I think someone just asked a question. Yeah, you asked it, Sean, about Bruce being beyond satire. As I say, it does. He reminds me, obviously on a lot smaller scale, of Trump, in that, like, how do political satirists write satire and comedy based on these presidential figures when they've had literally the man who encapsulates every single piece of satire that you could ever possibly do. And I truly think that, like, Steve Bruce is like, he's like a kind of mixture of Ron Manager and Mike Bassett. Like, he's truly like that.
Well, you mentioned that before, the Sarah Cooper, right? That's where we're at. That's where we're at with it, because she doesn't need to come up with anything like herself. She just needs to have a Trump speech. That's it. That's it. And then she can mouth it. Right? That's it. It's the new satire.
Yeah, but it's like it's reframing, because these things are just like Trump's crazy speeches are just given to us, and we're like, all right, okay. When she redid them and made them seem ridiculous, it like highlights how mental it is. And I guess the same with your Steve Bruce impersonations. Whilst you're not speaking exactly his words, you're actually preempting his words. You're looking into the future. It is like the, like, throw on all the attackers. Like, how ridiculous is that? Like, it's kind of funny to look at it in that way.
Do you enjoy Rich? Do you enjoy when he says things like, we've got like 5, 6, or 7 down with COVID. We're trying to press an extra 20, 30 yards. We're trying to press an extra 20, 30 yards up the pitch. You know, when he comes up with these figures that are just like the full tilt of this game. We've got 5, 6, or 7 out with COVID. Like, no, mate, how are you?
Look, man. I honestly, sometimes I feel there was one of I started to feel sorry for him about halfway through January. I was just like, he's just a man. He's a man out of time. No. You know, he's out of his time. He's a few years older than me. Norman, I tell you, right, I come from a time when there was only 4-4-2, right? And then somebody like Terry Venables or whatever comes along, and they have new ideas, right? But pretty much everybody's still playing 4-4-2, right? That's where Bruce comes from, you know. And basically, he's got nothing else. He's got nothing else to give. If he even had a vision, if the bloke even had a vision of how he wanted his team to play, but nothing's all. If he has, I can't see it. I can't see it.
It's put 5 forwards on the pitch. Just high 5 forwards on. That's the vision.
He's tried it.
I tried to play attacking football. I had 7 players out there. They were forward. Oh yeah.
I think Caleb Marshall, who's watching, says, for the hosts. Well, we're all hosts because we're a communist utopia. For the hosts. When do you think Bruce would have been sacked if fans were back in the stadiums? Brentford, Sheffield United. It's a question. I don't know. I don't know that he would have been, because Bruce, I think, is a figurehead of a shit regime, right? And he gets the flack because he's not really, in my opinion, good enough to be in the role that he's in, and we're never going to progress, and that's all the stuff that we want as fans. But I just don't know that even if fans were back in the stadium that he would have been sacked. Maybe he'd have had, so much abuse that he might have considered walking. But again, I don't think that he would have done that. Norman, do you have an opinion on that?
It's difficult because the fact that fans aren't in there has skewed football to the extent where the results this season haven't really repeated like a pattern like that they would have done for the last however how many seasons it's been. So I think fans in the stadium may have impacted on some of the results. Don't get me wrong, I don't think we'll be on any more points than we are now, but it's difficult to say. Like if the results had repeated, let's say okay, fans were in the same performances, same results. I still don't think he would have sacked him because the club have more or less said that unless he's in the bottom three, they wouldn't contemplate getting rid of him, which is obviously a ridiculous way of doing business, because once you're in the bottom three, you're in the bottom three. I mean, we've been there twice, and both times it's ended in relegation. The toxicity from the crowd would have been unbelievable, and also what you would have noticed would have been 10 to 12,000 empty seats. I think obviously the club gave 10,000 season tickets away for free, because even when Newcastle was sitting quite pretty at Christmas after beating Crystal Palace when Almiron scored, I think we weren't that far. I think we were about 8th in the table. Perhaps I might be exaggerating there, but we weren't doing too bad.
We were 9.
You had 10,000 fans missing, and that's when the pre-season tickets came out. So people had already disengaged massively, put in the bad performances this season. Then I think the level of vitriol in the stadium would have been extreme. But that doesn't influence Mike Ashley. That does not influence his decision making at all, and none of us can ever predict what he's going to do.
Yeah.
After that 2-month run that he put in through December and January up the Everton game, right? There is no other Premier League manager who would have kept their job after that 2 months. After that, it was dreadful what was being served up. We were just going, there was no progression there whatsoever. How, like I say, any other Premier League manager would have been sacked. If you look at Lampard went, and he hadn't done much wrong, you know. There's no way any of them would have kept a manager like Bruce after that kind of run. No way.
Yeah, and so that kind of goes back to the if he wasn't going to be sacked then why would he have been sacked this season after, you know, when we're you know, reasonably comfortably middle of the bottom half of the table, like to the powers that be at Newcastle United, that represents success, I think. So
this is the club that thought it would be sensible to give John Carver 15 games in charge. There is literally nothing predictable about the club. The only thing predictable about Newcastle is its predictability for doing the madness. And like, they love doing the madness, don't they? They absolutely love it. Like, what person in charge of any decision making at the top level of an institution in the top flight of any country in Europe, like France, Spain, Germany, Italy, all these top leagues, England, which decision maker would think I'm going to give the job to their equivalent of John Carver for 15 games? I mean, the main truly boggles. And you know, we were 10th when Carver took over, and we basically stayed up the last game of the season. And the club's got a history of doing it. Like this is the club who brought in Joe Kinnear from the cold. I mean, I genuinely thought Joe Kinnear had passed on. I thought he passed on to the other side. Yet there he is, resurrected like Jesus, and taking them at Newcastle. So there you go.
Like Roy Hodgson.
How do you not like?
Well, I mean, he could have been a bit like Roy Hodgson. He's just
they just warm him up.
More machine than man.
Yeah, chrome. He's got chrome arms. Daniel Marshall says that Bruce's 1, 2, 3, 4, etc. is how I imagine politicians and media train to avoid being pinned down to a specific number in future. I can kind of say that, but I struggle to believe that Steve Bruce has media training. Just because of the other elements of the press conferences that he does, where he does go in a grunt with Lee Ryder, or he thinks someone's asking him about bacon, or he's all of the things, all of the sort of crazy things that he says.
Who would sit there at a press conference like a Premier League manager sat at a press conference thinking that a journalist, therefore, like pre-match questions, had asked him how the bacon was? Like, where does that thought formulating your head? Like,
It's
you know,
so funny.
Like someone performing surgery, like 10 doctors and nurses around around like a body performing like, like keyhole surgery. How's the bacon? Did you see it? Like, no, just
he does come across as a little bit clueless. But I have a little bit of sympathy for him, because he does get a lot. Where is he getting this thing whereby if he's not on social media, is it his son who's like feeding him the stories?
Well,
is that actually happening?
Literally,
is that actually?
Steve Bruce might have like a burner account, and he just might like he might follow True Faith. He might have like a weird like Breve Struce, like at Breve Struce, and it's him. He might watch, but I think it is his son. I think his son is on social media. I think he's got a daughter as well. She's probably on social media. She's probably a reasonably like young person, so she's probably got a social media. So it must be that he's getting fed it. But isn't that a bit like, wouldn't you want to protect your dad if people were saying like nasty things about your dad? Because don't get me wrong, like the stuff about wanting him to die, I unequivocally think is terrible. Like that is the worst of the worst of like, want him to be gone from the club, want him to, go out to pastures new, fine, but don't like wish harm on him. Like I just don't think that's like constructive or I don't know. I've personally have a big issue with that. But if it was like someone was saying that about my dad on Twitter, I'd just be like, everything's fine, Dad. Like, don't look at Twitter. It's fine.
He's got Twitter, hasn't he? He has. He's got his Twitter burner account. He's like Norman. He's like Norman. He's pretending not to be on there, but he's on there. You know what I mean? Somewhere. Nobody knows. Nobody knows.
Lurking.
I love the fact that Alex is like basically saying, you know what, my 60-year-old father, I'm basically just going to tell him every day how much people hate him, like, because I love him.
There was a big thing, Norman, earlier in the week, and a lot of people on Twitter realised that Alex Bruce had blocked them, right? And then they thought, I've never even interacted with him. They're all being blocked. So I thought, so what the first thing you do on Twitter is, if somebody's like blocking like loads of random people who you check to see if you've been blocked. You haven't blocked me, by the way. That's because I'm nice. That's because I'm nice. You know what I mean?
Does he follow you though?
You remind him of his dad, so he keeps you on there. You remind him of his father. Yeah, I think he's just in a huff with his dad because his dad doesn't pick him anymore. He picked him for that. I think he played Alex, didn't he? His son at like three of his clubs, perhaps.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, so that's what it is. Alex is like he's just sick that his dad doesn't pick him anymore.
My understanding though is that he does have some kind of role to play. I think he helps with looking at opposition and stuff like that. I think I've heard that somewhere.
Yeah, didn't he on Brentford?
No, he's obviously terrible at that job because nothing has changed. But my understanding is that is his role. I might be wrong. I could be wrong. It's happened before. It'll happen again. Let me have a look. Paul actually, you know what, Paul? I will come back to your comment, but Lee Foster's written twice now. Ask Rich about Cowpen, and then he said ask Rich about Cowpen, and then later on just wrote Cowpen. So I do feel
it's just that's one of that's just a reference to one of the just a reference to an earlier Twitter thing that I did about the pronunciation of the word Coopen, not Cowpen. Well, in fact, Charlotte, hold on a minute. What are you saying, Cowpen?
I read it wrong.
It's not Cowpen. It's Coopen. It's Coopen. Everybody knows that.
I'm sorry. I meant Coopen. I'm sorry. I'm a terrible Geordie. I'm a posh Geordie. I'm outnumbered today with the proper accents, and I feel
no. In fairness, the whole point of the video is because I was saying cowpen. I was pronouncing it cowpen, and I was
Were you
put to
made fun of?
rights. Yes, I was, but the kid was from Blythe, you know, so he knew what he was talking about. So I had to basically doff my cap to him and just admit, right, okay, it's Coopin.
Well, that's very gracious of you. You are a lovely person. Alex Haste, speaking of Blythe, not that he lives there, but he works there. Hi all, lovely old show tonight. Rich, you do great impressions of Steve Bruce. Do you think he might do impressions of you in his spare time? And if he did, would they be any good?
He possibly could. He possibly could, because basically, the Steve Bruce is me. You know what I mean? That's what I'm doing there, right? It's me. It's me own. I'm basically.
It's your truth.
There's a lot of the things he could do. A lot of the things that I'm doing are like it's me own failures, if you like. One of the there was one of the ones that I did, which was it was the Lee Ryder one. I was going about the tactics, and remember the one I did. I don't know if you saw it. You must have seen it. It was when I was with Ryder, and then I turned to one side to talk to someone and say he was talking about expecting goals or something.
Mm-hmm.
He was talking about expecting goals, and I didn't know what he was talking about. I'd heard them mention it on Match of the Day, right? That wasn't Steve Bruce. That was me. That was me. I didn't know what expecting goals were, right? And the reason I didn't know was because I won't Google it. But I won't Google it. But I won't Google it, not because I'm scared, just because I refuse to, right? Because I don't want to know what it means, because it means nothing to us anyway. It's just like it's the new breed, right? It's the new breed of football commentator and football fan, whereas I'm old school. So it's a small step from being from refusing to Google it out of principle and being scared to Google it, which was Steve Bruce. So yeah, he probably could do me just to see.
I think he probably does. No, I think he probably does. I think he probably sits at home.
Do you think he's seen it? Do you think he's seen it?
I mean, if his son is preparing a dossier of like things about his dad daily. Yeah, well, no, because they're not rooted in cruelty, are they?
I don't think so. I don't. Yeah, and I wanted to say that as well. It's not. They're not. It's not about being cruel. It's about having a bit of fun, and it's about having a laugh. You know, none of these things happen, right? Steve Bruce, although he did end up having a bit of a beef with Lee Ryder, right? That wasn't. It's not my fault. That, right? The fact that he's like that he has got a bee in his bonnet about Rafa Benitez, that's not my fault. The fact that he's got something going on with Richie at the moment, none of this is my fault, right? I'm just having a bit of fun. That's all. That's all it is.
I think what's happened though, Rich, I think what might be happening here is that you're making these videos, he's seen them, you're seeing his press conferences, he's seen your videos, and you're both losing track of who you actually really are. Bruce is like, did Ryder? Did I have a beef with Ryder? I had a beef with Ryder, didn't I? Not realise it was actually you. I must have had a beef with Ryder because you did an impression of him. It's an absolute madness.
I'd actually thought that. I actually thought at one point I'd probably had a drink or something, right? I was talking, is he doing this on purpose? Is he doing it on purpose? And at one point, I think it was on the Benitez thing. I think he's using my videos to try and get himself sacked. I honestly thought he wanted to get himself sacked at one point. He was getting that bad. I thought he's doing this on purpose. And he's saying, right, okay, what would Big Papa Blue say? What would Rich Oliver say? Oh, God. I actually did think that. Did think that. Only like fleetingly. Right? I didn't dwell on it for ages, I think, but crossed my mind.
I think that is possible. He's getting this like email of links from his son every day of stuff to look at, of people being horrible about him or just talking about him, because as we say, this isn't being horrible. And he's like, Oh, did I? I must have. Oh, I must have said that. Norman.
One of the mentioning Lee Ray, they're one of my favourite things about the whole Bruce's huffs. We'll call them Brucey's huffs. Because every time these press conferences on Zoom, you know, when you hear the first the first question, like Lee Redder, I think he said it like 2 times now, but I've just got it in my head. This happens all the time. Hi, Steve. Hi, Steve. Like he said, they're enthusiastic and happy, and then Bruce just completely ignores him. You can just hear him go, "Hi, Steve," in the background. It's heartbreaking. It's absolutely heartbreaking. It really is. And then
just
Bruce,
like a really excited little child, like meeting your heroes, and they're horrible. Hi, Steve. Oh, this guy. Daniel wants to ask me a question about my posh Geordie. Does it have any similarities with the ridiculous, contrived kind of Bruce and Shearer, etc.? Don't think I've heard you say only. Is that how they say it? For only? No, because
Really?
mine's. I was brought up in Jesmond. That's what my accent is. And theirs is like trying to get rid of it. I don't really know what theirs is. Norman, they have. I don't know. We call it Senti.
Yeah, the accents. There is a particular type of accent that Geordies who move away try and affect, and obviously being like, I mean, I left the area 96, and everywhere I've lived, I've always met other Geordies, and some of them you just straight off because you see each other, and straight away you're relaxing, you're chatting to each other, and it's obviously your accent's just there. Whereas others will talk to other people, and it'll just be this. You can tell you're like, yeah, you're putting that on. You just put it on. It's like I can understand. Like, obviously, like, especially I'm doing South, right? I've had a few drinks, and I start talking, and people, mates who have been mates with the years, will look at us like, they're like, what you saying, you silly little man, what you saying? So obviously, I understand that people have to kind of turn down their accent, but their accent, I mean, that's just truly spectacular. The worst one though for me is Waddle. Waddles isn't even like a.
Yeah, someone's written that, Chrissy Waddle.
It's like he's got his own like linguistic creation. It's like he's made that. He's created his own accent in his own little world, and it's truly spectacular.
Yeah.
Do you know what tends to let people down mostly? The word. It's no, but they go now instead of no. Right? Now, the reason I mention that is because my uncle Kerry moved to Stevenage in about 1968 or something like that. And he's passed away now and what have you. And he never lost a bit of his Geordie accent apart from one word. And that word was no. No. He just couldn't. And they all do it. They all do it. And I think I was away from Newcastle for a time, and I think I did it. But I think I've pulled myself back in. I've dragged myself back in. So now I say no. It's the same as what I used to.
I don't know how I say it. No. I say no.
One of the other ones as well that I know is so we use like the plural. We'll say like it hurt us, right? It hurt me. But when I hear Geordies say like oh yeah, that hurt me, and they use me instead of is, that's when I know they've changed their accent slightly. And with as well. Give it. Give it, like instead of our. We say we.
Pellenty. This Waddle with this Pellenty thing, right? You just fucking, you wouldn't, would you? You know, you would just you'd go to elocution lessons or anything just to make that stop happening, to stop that, to stop saying that word that way, right? But he doesn't. It's like his signature tune now, and it's like his signature word, and he's just allowed it to carry on, as if it's all right. But I tell you what, it's not all right. It's not. It's unacceptable, especially when he's got. I mean, fair enough, he was doing like podcasts and that, but he's on national TV doing this. Apparently, still now, like it's like mate, 10 years ago he was pulled up for this. 10 bloody years ago, and he's still getting away with it on national TV. He's getting paid. None of us are getting paid here. None of us. Can you imagine? Anyway, I've gone up on one.
I think it's righteous. I think your anger's righteous.
This is therapy.
it's a righteous anger, but I'm gonna posit a theory here. Right? Did he say penalty until Italia 90, and he just hasn't been able to bring himself to say the word ever since he hoped that one out of the bar against Germany in the semi-finals? He's just basically can't even, the word penalty can't even come up with his mouth because of the bad memories that it brings up. So he's changed it subconsciously to penalty, and he's not even aware he's doing it.
I'll tell you one of the ones that gets on my wick. John Motson went just out of the blue. I can't remember exactly when it was, when he started calling Barcelona, right? Barcelona, like, and then we were just supposed to accept it. We were just saying, all right, okay, that's okay. He's calling it Barcelona. Now we've all been wrong all this time. It's actually Barcelona, right? And then, like, after about 2 years later, starts calling it Barcelona again. And it's like, hold on, I'm just getting my head around the Barcelona, and now you're just going to go back to Barcelona just like that, right? As if the last 2 years haven't happened. Oh man, I'll tell you what, I was livid.
I think you still might be.
I wasn't that livid, to be honest.
You just want some consistency, Rich. That's what I'm hearing.
That's it. No, but it was just the way he just went from one to the other, and then just stopped doing it because it went out of fashion.
What, you know what? Again, I've got why it might happen was, when people go on holiday to Spain and they come back after 2 weeks and they're like, oh, I'm going to learn some Spanish. Definitely going to learn some Spanish. So I reckon Motson did like a weekend in Barcelona, and he learned how to say it in Spanish. See, so for like 2 years he was like Barcelona. He did like a night class, did like 10 classes, night classes. Didn't do his homework though. Like the first 3 weeks he did his homework, but then he dropped off. So that's what it was. And then after 2 years he just thought, fuck it, I'm never going back to Spain, am I? So there's no point anymore.
It's like when you meet up with somebody who's, when you were younger, probably doesn't happen now, people are adults, but maybe it does. They'd just come back from holiday and they'd be, you'd be in a restaurant or something, remember? And ask the waiter, you're in England, by the way, and they'd be like, agua. Oh, sorry, I've been in Spain. I'm sorry. Water.
when I was younger, I went one of the first times I went to, when I went to South America, you'd meet people in hostels, like these English kids who'd obviously been like traveling for a couple of months. So they talk like in English, like, so yeah, and anyways, we got the bus down to Bolivia, and then to La Paz. You be like pretending they could speak Spanish just by saying the words really loudly in a Spanish accent. So maybe that's what it was on Monty.
It must be. There's plenty of theories.
But it stayed with us. It stayed with us anyway.
I can see that, Richard.
I've let that out there.
Yeah. And this is a cathartic. This is a safe space. This is a safe space, so you can get out whatever you want to. And you're with people who love you, so that's fine. Somebody's asking.
It's just between us three.
Oh, about that actually. Someone says, have you heard Donna Eyre's accent now? I haven't. I didn't know Donna Eyre was still knocking around. She lives abroad though, I think. So
I thought she passed on.
Pardon?
I thought you passed on, like joking here.
Norman, if you don't hear of someone for what's the cut-off? 6 weeks? They must have died. What is it? Can't believe how many people I used to know.
No. If no one hasn't heard of anybody for 6 months, just assumes they're dead.
That's it. Oh,
it just helps me cope better with their eventual death.
You must be always in some kind of low-level mourning. Just always.
Callum Wilson, he's in for 2 months, isn't he? 7 weeks doing the night. Callum Wilson.
Well, he wrote on his. I suppose we should talk about the team a little bit. Jonesy says, best Charlotte show ever, not talked about the football, could be the way forward. Oh, okay.
See, I knew this would happen. I know I'd warned you away from talking about football because I'm clueless, right? I was saying before, I come from a time when it was just 4-4-2, right? And there was nothing really to discuss, right? And then all of a sudden, in the 90s, Alan Hansen starts, he's on Match of the Day, and he's like, oh, this is a revelation. There's more going on than what we ever thought. Because back in the day, all it was basically, it wasn't about formations or anything like that. It was just a case of, well, was he any good or was he shit? That was it. We didn't have any concept as to why that would be. Right? Alan Hansen comes along, changes everything, and then there's a whole load of us who've been left behind. We've been left behind. We've got nothing. We don't have a voice anymore.
This is you. This is you blowing into Steve. This is you and Steve Bruce getting confused. Who's who? Yeah.
That's a point.
It's like I feel like at the end of this show, Rich is just gonna like rip off his face, and it's been Bruce the whole time. Somebody did point out though.
Can I just say there was another one that I did, which was it was Steve Bruce had got mixed up, and he thought we were playing Brentford when it was Leeds. Right, so it basically, and we were playing Brentford in the cup one week, and it was Leeds, and it got mixed up. Right, that wasn't Steve Bruce. That was me. that was me who got mixed up, and I just thought it'd be funny to do it as Steve Bruce. The poor, it's him. It makes him like he looks like he's an idiot, right? But it wasn't him. It was me. I was the idiot.
So you're dressing up your mistakes as Steve Bruce's mistakes.
Yeah, not wholly, by the way, not wholly, but partially.
We are. I don't know why I'm looking at my watch because I can see the time on my screen. We have done like 52 minutes of this, which is crazy. Thank you so much, Rich. Let's have one or two more questions, and then you can have your evening back. Caleb Marshall says, what's your favorite non-true faith podcast? Well, Norman, you do one.
I do, yes. Football and Society. Check it out.
There you go.
Yeah. Oh God.
Well, I was not aware of that.
Oh, please have a listen. The non-football ones. I'm going to sound like a right knob here, which is standard because I am, obviously. The Best of the Left is a brilliant podcast, and I listen to it like every time it's released. That's a cracking one. And Surviving Society, but that's because I'm like basically a sociologist. So there you go. Really dull podcast.
No, not dull.
But, really interesting to me. Thank you.
They interest you. I listen to a celebrity podcast called Who Weekly, where they talk about everything you need to know about the celebrities you don't. And they only will talk about people who aren't really celebrities. So if you say their name, like if I said one of their names to you, Norman, you'd be like, who? So they separate celebrities into who's and thems. So I listen to that. It's dead silly, but they're quite clever people. They talk about it through kind of, I mean, it's silly, but it's kind of through a social lens. And obviously True Faith is my number one fave. And yours too, I assume, Rich.
I do like the True Faiths. I like the Athletic, the one that Taylor does. That's really good. Can be funny as well. But the one thing that's got us through the lockdown really is just there's a comedian called Bill Burr who he does like a twice. Who Norman has a look off, to be honest.
He's in the Mandalorian.
And he's not particularly PC or anything like that. And sometimes he goes on a little bit too much about American sports. But he really got us through the first part of the lockdown. But lately, there's a lad who I follow on Twitter called Dan Jackson, who wrote that Northumbrians.
Oh yeah.
Book, and he keeps appearing on podcasts. And there was one which he recommended, or he was on it, called "The Rest Is History," and it just goes back. It's just looking back. It's just a couple of blokes chatting about, I don't know, Troy, the Roman Empire, and all that. And it's just like, and they're having a laugh as well. And they take the mickey out of each other. But it's really interesting, and that's me new. That's my new thing.
I'm going to check that out. Dan's book is really good. If you haven't read it, The Northumbrians, it's so good. It's so interesting. I'm super proud, and my voice might not give it away, but I love being from the Northeast, and I love the Northeast, and I'm really interested in how it came to be, how it is, and that book is just excellent. So if you haven't read it. Last question. Any chance of a Norman and Rich Grumpy Old Men podcast? Old men. I said it wrong.
We could probably work on it. I reckon.
Well, if there's a demand for it, then just get in touch with our people and what they can do.
Yeah.
As long as
we make it happen.
Yeah, as long as neither of us passes on in the next couple of weeks, then maybe.
I mean, it could happen if I don't hear from either of you.
I'm gonna not do a Steve Bruce for a couple of months. Norman's going to think I'm dead.
Norman's going to have held a little memorial for you.
R.I.P. Richie.
I can't believe that Rich Oliver passed on. He didn't. I haven't heard from him for 2 months.
It's really sad about Rich, isn't it? What do you mean? He's absolutely fine. With that, we will go. Thank you to Rich. That hour has flown by. Thank you so much for joining me. Honestly, I'm so grateful. It's been really, really fun. And I feel like a lot of that has been very cathartic for you as well. You got out how you feel about Pellanty. You got out how you feel about all kinds of stuff.
Barcelona.
And Norman,
I didn't see any of that coming. I didn't realize I was still carrying that about with me. But now I've let it out. I feel so much better.
Good. I'm pleased.
That's a way.
So that is us. Thank you, Norman, as well, for joining me. Rich, if you feel the need to get anything else off your chest, just let me know and we'll happily have you back on. The rest of you, please stay safe, stay inside, and we'll be back. I don't know when, but next week.